Okay. Oh, all right. So I painted my little sample on a canvas paper, but I'm going to paint it on a little canvas board now. And I have this bright light on. I feel like I'm performing surgery. And so I have these little bugs that are flying around now because of the light. So disregard those. And
Well, you're in the woods.
well, not really, but
Well, the
I
deer are. They're attracted to the deer.
oh, but there you go. Correct. That's right. Well, we have a little bit of authenticity, I guess, right? So I'm gonna work like I usually do from the back forward, up here and down. I did just kind of I used, we're gonna use some of our blue and green, maybe a little Payne's gray, which I have to grab. Because it's a little dull back here. I wanted it a little dull back here so that the white highlights on the birch tree and the white and the flowers down here sort of popped. So if we had it really bright back there, it would be a little hard to make those really show up like I did. So I'm gonna get a little Payne's gray out because I do want to dull down a little bit in the background. So we'll paint the background. It's just kind of a little bit fuzzy. Then we will put in, I have a little green almost washed in here and there to make it look like trees in the distance. Then we will put our birch trees. We've painted birch trees before. These I thought were fun. I made them really dark to begin with, and that's why these little highlights are really jumping out at us too. Sometimes I go a little bit lighter with the birch tree, and it's a little more subtle of a highlight, but I like really making them dark and having these pop. So we will start. Might not have all the colors out. I have this little tray, which is kind of small for me to work on, but I'm going to give it a whirl. And actually, you know what? Let me grab another one because I think I'll need another one maybe to mix on. I don't have my
They,
big
I
palette.
watched, I watched a lot of birch trees this past week being planted, and they've been using a credit card, like they run it
Oh,
through
yes.
black
Like
or
almost like a
white,
palette knife. Yep.
yeah, and they just scrape it over just a little bit. I thought,
Kind
well,
of gives
that's
it
kind of neat.
nice texture. It gives a nice look to it. These are a little small to do that, but especially if you have big ones. I
Yeah,
just had my brush kind of mimic that, but sometimes if they were bigger, I would even use the side of a palette knife, which would sort of be similar to that, the credit card idea.
yeah.
Oh, Lisa, I'll see those. I'll open those as we go along on that chat and see your creations. All right, so I'm going to just start. Like I said, I might have to get more colors out, but let's just start with the background. I'll use just a little bit of a bigger flat brush. Um, I may even use, I'm going to start with that, but sometimes, I like to go to that bristly brush just if I need to move some of the color around. So it's pretty much a matter of just use what works for you, but I'll show you a couple of different things. And it's just the phthalo blue and green. I'm gonna get a little Payne's gray in there. As I'm going along, it's kind of a lighter coat, but as I'm going along, um, and I'm gonna put in a little bit of quinacridone in some spots. I do have a little bit of pinks here and there. And I could even do that after, kind of scumble it in. I think I probably did because I saw what I used down here and then just tried to put a little of this blue in the sky here and a little of the pink just to kind of make it a little cohesive. So we can do that at any point. It's funny how sometimes when I'm painting the sample, that's probably the order I did it, but since it's already done now and I'm copying what I did, I realize I put the pink up there. So we'll see when we want to put that in. And let's see. I'm going to just mix a little of the green and the blue. Get a little bit of that Payne's gray. It's really going to be tight on my little dish here. And I think I'm going to lighten it with the buttermilk, like the ivory color instead of the white. It gives it a little bit of a warmer look. I'm very green here, so I'm just really going to mix, and then when I add the light, it shows me kind of what I have for a color, and then I can take maybe a little more blue, and it needs to be a little duller and a little more Payne's gray. And I'm going to just start with that. I'm going to go around the deer as best I can. That's looking a little bright to me, so I think I'll just pull some of that buttermilk color there. And it's kind of even like I just did the recording and got that out to you guys. I'm gonna thin that down a little bit. Um, Sometimes as I'm going, I discover new ways or different ways to do things too. So anyway, that just looks a little bit still bright to me. I mean, a little dark to me. And I want to change it up. I don't want the whole background to look like that shade. And so I want to get a little more of that Payne's gray. And I want to get it a little bit duller some places. Some places I'll go a little more blue. I'm using this little pile of paint I'm painting on there. I'm going to keep the paint a little thinner, I think. I'm putting a little water on my brush just to move it around and give it kind of more of a little bit of a hazy look. I am being a little careful around my tracing. I'm just going to go now with the paint a little thinner so that it stays wet a little longer. I'm going to just try to get around here because I really don't want to lose my lines too much. If I just do this top part, I can worry about in between the legs and things afterwards. Right now, I'm just kind of saving the tracing. Trees, I don't have to be super careful with because those are, easy enough to, you could even cover your sky if you had to, if you went in too far. But I'm going to just get a little bit, and I'm going to just use these little crisscrossy kind of strokes. I'm going to grab a little of this deep ochre color too. That's just the Deco Art Deep Ochre. That putting a little on that gives me that kind of earthy green. That gives me some sense of maybe there's trees in the background there too. And just to get some of those colors off, I'm just going to dry it off. I'm not going to worry about washing my brush all the time, but I do want to get a little bit of the pinks in there too. So I'm going to grab a little white, really lighten this up a little bit. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to concentrate here and then I'll get in between after too. Paint is drying because I have the fan on here, so it's drying kind of fast for me. So it's just going to be kind of a bluey, greeny, dull background. There's no way to sort of replicate exactly what I have up there. I might get a little of that quinacridone in some of the ivory. And then I could just kind of put it around here and there. This is a little wet still. So I'm trying to work wet and wet. I don't want to have this little bit of an outline behind here though. So I'm going to just get in a little closer to the deer there. Get a little darker in there. It's fun to do a big background where you can just take your X strokes and you're blending as you go and then painting on top. It's a little harder to paint around here. It might be an idea too, even just to do your background the way you like it and then trace your deer on top of that. Here feel like I'm a little bit held back by trying to stay in these little spaces. I don't have to worry so much about where these little foreground is. That's going to be kind of blends right in with this. So I'm not going to worry about tracing around that. But I'm going to just use the phthalo green and blue of Payne's gray and get my lights there. I might take some yellows, even sometimes the deep ochre or this is the primary yellow. Gives us a nice little bit of some green back there. It's a bit, like I said, just a bit of a hazy background back there. And I think it would be, now's a good time if I had it handy to use like a little medium. This is a float medium. Just makes when we do our side loading, sometimes it makes it a little easier, but I also use it like a to blend a little bit and have a little more time before it dries. Using a little bit here just to kind of re-wet some of that area and get back in there and soften it. Maybe a little pink in the places. It's really drying pretty fast. I like it when it's like wet like this and I can go right in and see it sort of mushes together and sort of blends. I may put the fan not directly on me just so it's not drying the paint so quick.
Was it hot there, Cheryl?
It's a little warm in my little room. It's very pleasant out. It's just that with the air off and on, I hate to go and open all the windows and then shut them all. Right
Yeah.
now, if I had the windows open, it would be lovely, but I don't really like just opening them all. So it's been very pleasant. It's been, I don't want to say on the cool side, it's like in the 80s during the day, but in the mornings and in the evenings, it's really very, very pleasant. Let's see. Oh, Shelby.
It's turned substantially cooler here, so
Yeah, I think we're having a little bit of a cool Thanksgiving, and but I think then it's going to get back to being, not scorching hot, but
yeah.
and now I'm just really trying to get the whites covered here and there. Hi, Shelby.
Hello, I'm late.
Welcome. No, 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 we just started. Don't worry. I'm just working on the background here. It's just kind of a little bit of a I'm using some phthalo blue and green, a little Payne's gray. I want it a little on the dull side. Sometimes I go in and get a little bit of this deep ochre to get kind of like trees or foliage in the way background. I'm gonna go and do in between the trees a little bit here now. I just want to get all the white of the background that I know is like the forest. So we have the two birch trees here, so it's something like this. And my paint is drying pretty fast. So I've got a little bit of a medium mixing in here too. And the very edge here. And all I want to do, I like that color, but I just want to dull it down a little bit because, and actually, we can dull our color down by a little bit of our red in there too. That dulls down the color nicely too. Now that's just going to be in between the trees. I'm not going to worry about the foliage that's going to be down here. That's going to sort of be in the front. So let's go and get in between these trees over here. So for the most part, I'm using the blue and green and Payne's gray, and I'm mixing it lighter with the buttermilk. Still helps it with keeping it a little dull. And I gotta remember which is the tree and which is the in between here. And a bit of that here and there. Helps me when I look at the video, actually more than looking at the piece sometimes. It's like stepping back and looking at it. Yep, a little more gray. I almost brought up, I got a little Payne's gray on that dirty brush, and if I bring some up, it's almost like a vague tree in the background there. I can do that here and there. Here it's all dry, so it's almost not blending in enough, but all right. So, oh, and between the legs now, we'll do that. Might as well get that filled in. And then I'm going to go back and just tint it with some of the colors. And we'll work our way forward. This is probably a lot to ask with this big brush, but I'm going to try it. I want to dull it down a little. I want to get a little bit that deep ochre on there. I thought if you wanted to make it Christmassy, you could put a little wreath around their neck. Would be kind of cute.
Yeah.
Just put snow instead of flowers. You could winter it up there a little bit. And let's see. Oh, quinacridone in here. I've got these little tiny areas. I'm going to come back with a littler brush there. That got very bright, so we'll dull it down a little. This is very blue here. These are more green, so it's a nice time to maybe take a little of that blue and you could put that here and there too. I'm going to use a smaller brush just for those little areas. It's like a little jigsaw puzzle there with the legs. So let's get a little square brush here, pick up some of that same color. Let's see if I can make this make sense. Okay, I think it's just right here that I need to. Okay. I think that is all of the in-between stuff. So now I think I'll just take a flat brush, a dry brush. I might want to just get a little bit of the colors I kind of added up here. It's just a little quinacridone. Just kind of brush that on here and there. I don't know why that audio does that sometimes. Just spreading some of the color I know I'm going to use down here on the flowers around. I liked a little bit of a texture on a brush to do some of this with. I'm going to put in some little foliage in the back, so maybe just a little bit of the deep ochre and some Payne's gray and some green gives me a duller green. I don't want to go that bright. And I can just put sort of pat it back here, just sort of almost stippling it in places. This is a little foliage that's behind the trees, and we'll put the trees in, we'll put some branches and some foliage closer to us, but just a little bit here and there in the background. Could even go a little bit more with the phthalo green with that dirty brush and brush a little here and there too. So it's just kind of a really dull kind of a background. And I'm going to leave that. I'm going to go back. It looks that I'm looking at now how blue-gray this looks compared to some of the lighter bits we have up here. So maybe just some deep ochre could kind of just be softly added over that to lighten it up a little bit. Some of the colors we have here. Just lightening up, trying to get it a little closer to what we have up top here. And this is the sort of stuff we're not really even going to see afterwards. So let's go ahead now. I think I'll work with the birch trees, some really light trees in the background, and the birch trees, move that forward. Then we'll do our deer, and then we will do the foreground. And the birch trees are going to just be, Shelby, I was telling the ladies that the birch trees I did this time are really darker than I usually start with. And so that makes these lights really pop, and I like the effect. It almost just really jumps out at you. So I'm going
Right.
to start my birch trees, and usually I'll go with gray, but not quite so dark. So I'm going to just take some white and some Payne's gray and make them a little darker than I usually would. Whatever brush is good. I'm using the flat brush. I can chisel edge it to get the edges. I can use it flat just to fill in. And it's really just a mix of white and Payne's gray. I may even dip into my blue every now and then, just to get it a little more blue. But for the most part, it's really just the two. And I'm picking up a little blue because I have it under here, which I kind of like, so I don't have to really add the blue. It gives me that little tint. And right now, they're so gray, they're really blending in the background, which is also nice for when you put on those darks and lights. It brings that part of the tree forward. Then you paint down as you need to get it to flow, but again, it's like so much of the same value, it's almost hard to see them right now. I got to remember to, have some leaning, not all stick straight, although birch trees are, for any trees, they're the ones that do stand the straightest, but I really have to remember to not make them perfectly, give them some bumps and wiggles, and so they're not just perfectly still stick straight. And they're a little bit maybe a tad wider at the bottom, but for the most part, they are, they don't really taper that much towards the top. Since I have that on my brush, I can go ahead and use the chisel edge and just get some thinner ones back here. Just kind of bring those up. You can do as many or as few as you want. It's just some in the background that will come and give them a little highlight, but nothing like these big ones that are in the front. Oops, that got a little heavier at the top. I'm going to dry my brush off, wash it now, dry it off, and get some little almost washy white trees way in the back. So just gonna wash, add some water to some of the white. And just, you can do this with a line or two if you're more comfortable. I really don't want it to even show up that much, but I know that that's going to dry lighter because it's got so much water in it. And it could just be some little here and there. Just those are really a little bright to me. I might just dab them a little bit if I need to, but I think they will dry a little lighter. And some in between. And taper that one and thin that out a little. Okay, so I am letting this dry a little bit. I might go a little darker even on, it looks like I want the left side of where I'm doing my highlights. I want it almost a little darker on that right side. So I'm going to take kind of a wash of Payne's Gray, but just on these right sides, I think I want it even darker. So it's kind of just a wash. Not a lot of paint on there, more water. But I really want it darker on that side. Looks like I got really dark on that side. It's hard sometimes to try to replicate the painting. It's never going to be exact, but you probably realize that, Pam, when you're doing multiples of things. You're never going to be exactly the same as much as you try. Sometimes it's better when it's, you find it, sometimes it comes out better than the way you started. But okay. I see that I put some strokes in of the deep ochre. It actually looks a little close to even the honey brown. But I'm gonna go a little deep ochre, not a lot. I want just a little on the brush. And I'm gonna just kind of, with a stroke that's sort of like this, oops. Just some little strokes like this, very light on top of the tree trunks here and there. Just here and there. And I don't know why I did that, but I like the way it looks on my painting there. Now, I'm gonna put the little bright branches on now, actually. I might just use my liner brush. Again, a chisel edge would work too, but let's see. Liner brush was here a little while ago, so should still be here somewhere. There it is. So it's just gonna be a gray. And I'm going to just put some coming out of the trunk and up. So I kind of give it a little press like we do branches a lot of times. And they're just grayed out. I'm going to actually put some little white highlights, even though these are small. These ones that are behind here, I'm going to give a little bit of a shadow too. Give it that a little darker there. It's very thin down. Payne's Gray and a little bit of light or some light that I had down here. And I'm just giving this birch tree is looking really heavy to me now, but and remember the branches can cross over to the other trees. They don't always have to just stop right there. I'm going to get a little white and a little bit of that because some of these in the back I want to just go over a little bit lighter gray. So you can just use any of these shades here, just to little trees in the background. So I will just take a little flat brush, or sometimes I even use the brush on its side this way and scrape it in for those little white marks. I think sometimes I just use a little round brush and just flatten it and then bring that in. I'm going to go ahead now and let's try the white paint the way it is. I might need to thin it down a little. I do it sometimes in 2 steps. Sometimes I will do the white, but it needs to have a little bit more oomph to it. So I let it dry and I go back. So in some spots, it's just kind of a little bit more of a washy white. And then some spots are really, really solid painted. So I'm going to take a little water in that white now, just because it's real heavy. And I'm going to just you can lay your brush right down on the side here and kind of bring it in. Kind of replicating, Gail, what you see when you do the credit card even.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be from the left side. I did the left side brighter here on this. Sometimes on them I will go both sides, but it looks like on this I did just keep it kind of to the left side. And the less you think about it, like I'm sitting here trying to be so careful, but the less you think about it, and if you just kind of go along and just not worry about it too much, it looks a little more natural. I'm going to thin that down a little bit still and just get some that are sort of watery looking. And I'm trying not to do them like in a pattern, but I tend to do patterns so much. And sometimes you can take a little swipe from the other side. Texture of the canvas is helping with a little bit of bark texture. Sometimes it could be just like little dots and just a smush in there. And then really sometimes you can take that whole side of the brush. I'm going to bring some blue in there too, I think, at one point. I'm going to do these ones in the foreground and go back after and maybe do something on the ones that we just did, the little thin ones in the back. So these are going to dry and be a little faded off into the bark because they're with the water we have in the brush, but then I can really dab in some heavy, and the paint is a little thick, so I can get some nice heavy strokes on top of there after. And I can do a little bit on these branches that we have put on there. And sometimes it's almost as if like snow is settling on there a little bit, although this is not a snow scene, so I guess we can't really attribute it to that. But if it was a winter scene, sometimes it just appears as snow. And take a little bit, I've got my white a little bit washy still. And so I'm just going over some, even this is the washy white we use, but if I just put a little heavier white on it, the little washy parts turn to be a little shadow area almost. Sometimes it could just be a little bit of another white little tree back there. All right. I'm gonna get a little blue. I have a little light blue I happen to have. It's just in a mix. It's just a turquoise deco art. It would be the same as the phthalo and a little bit of white, but I had it right in front of me, so I just took that out. But a little bit of a light blue sometimes. And on the birch tree now, I'm kind of using these strokes back and forth that are like going with the shape of the tree a little bit, but I want a little bit of this blue in here in places. It's probably a little hard to see, but it's just I'm just sort of sometimes right in the middle, sometimes from this side. I just want little splotches of the blue here and there. Shows up nice on that dark gray too. I might even come back with a little bit more of a wash of that. We did it with the deep ochre, but maybe I'll take a little honey brown and just warm up the tree a little bit. If any questions as we go, feel free to shout them out.
Yeah, I got a question. Who's painting?
Oh, are you painting, Pam?
Of course.
Yes. Anybody else?
Okay, I did not see a single fall
Hand
bear.
go up. I have to say, I'm one to more watch when I'm watching the tutorial and then go back a second time. And so I've just taken a little honey brown and just thinned it a little bit. It looks very similar to what the deep ochre looks like, but on this gray anyway. But it's just going to give our trees a little more color. We know birch trees are white with the dark and the lights, but I love to add other colors in my trees, even if it's say you think of tree, oh, it's got a brown trunk, and if you look closer to the bark, you'd see some purples and greens and that sort of thing. So I wanted to add a little bit of something into the birch trees. So now we will get a little bit heavier. I might even use my little flat brush for this. Let's see. So I'm going to go right into the white without thinning it down. And I'm really going to just dab it. And now you can almost see the texture. Sometimes I'm just dabbing it and bring it in. It could almost be little dots. Sometimes I'm just going to bring it in. Sometimes it's right on top of something I already did. Other times you could leave that washy white and then just do a little bit of the bright here and there. You can see already how it's starting to really pop on there. So now I'm just going to kind of pick up that paint, kind of go, just concentrating kind of on the left side, but every now and then you could do a little bit of something on the other side. And again, sometimes the quicker I just go along, dab, pull, push, pull, and not think about so carefully, it doesn't look so perfectly placed because it would be a natural thing. And then when we get the little black spots on there too, that really just screams birch tree. So you can use a variety of brushes. This would have worked again, even if we took the little liner brush I was using, flat brush. You could try the little credit card. Even these aren't too small. You could try that. Or even, let's see if I have a palette knife handy. It's the same sort of thing. I rearranged my studio and gave everything a place. So now I can't find anything. But right? So if you just take a little bit of white, you could just sometimes just dab, sometimes bring it in. It does give a nice bright texture. I kind of like the way that looks. It's almost like, frosting a cake here. This is a flat, squarey one. I think the little ones with the rounded tips might not be so much that shape, but so you could try that in places. I'm going to go in with my black now, and I'm not using Payne's Gray. I'm going to actually use black for this. So sometimes, like if it's the eyes and nose on or something, I will go to regular black and not the Payne's Gray, and that is right here. And I took way too much out, but let's go and get some of that. And that could be on the left side, it can be on the middle, it can be on the right. I just kind of go along and just make, and I should have done more of the white as I go too, but you can always even go, if the branch is thick enough to even do a little dab on, you can certainly just do a little something. These ones are sort of far back. We could do it after the wash, but we don't want to really use the strong color there. Sometimes I just kind of go along these little branches with almost like a little black outline just to bring those forward a bit. I think I'm just going to do the little branches and then come and do the tree. I should finish the ones I started over here, actually. Sometimes if it's almost like a little blob in the middle. It looks like a little knot almost. I got a lot of white here. I gotta break that up some. That's a big blob there, so we'll kind of break it up a little bit. So I'm really trying hard to vary my shapes. It's hard for me sometimes because again, I start a pattern and I just go right along, but and again, sometimes if it's almost like a dryer brush and you're bringing it across, you get that texture of the canvas that really works with you. I feel like I'm putting my hand in something there. And I will finish up with some really, a few even brighter whites. They're pretty bright there, but we'll take a look, I guess, and see. Kind of hold that away from me a little bit. I'm gonna go back one more time with some heavier whites here and there. It's almost not an outline on this side, but kind of a little bit of a, gives some nice texture. These branches that are attached to these trees can use a little bit of a heavier white highlight. And that's good, I think, for them. How are they looking? I think a little more blue maybe here and there, but it's a weird shaped one there. Just a little blue, just to break up some of the gray. I think I'll leave those for the moment. I'm gonna do a little bit of white, a washy white on that, some of those in the background. Just thin that down. This one here, I'm gonna do a little heavier. It's not so far back. Oh, that one grew a little bit. It's okay. I want to have a vague look of, there are trees back there. And now I do put a little greenery on there. So I think I will go with, maybe I'm gonna find a brush that's kind of splayed out a little bit. So it kind of give me a little texture. I don't have a small enough, no, you could almost use your fan brush a little bit there, I suppose. So I want a darker green to start and then get a little lighter. It's just dabbed on here and there. And of course, this phthalo with your yellow makes a beautiful green, but it's a little bright. It would pop up and really be in your face too much. So I'm gonna get it a little duller with some deep ochre. And I'm gonna just dab it here and there. You hardly see it, but I want it to be that way because we're going to get it slowly a little lighter as we go. I even have a little over here that's a little dark, but okay. So it kind of breaks up these solid vertical lines a little bit. It might soften a little bit. And then I'll just dry that off, go right into the deep ochre. Lighten that a little bit. And again, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna add some water to my brush so I could do some that are sort of just washy back there. So I just add the water to my brush and just get a lot of that wet paint off so it's not gonna drip. But I could just do a little bit of watered down, maybe a little brighter. So it's just kind of watered down, kind of almost blends into the background a little bit. Now to make that a little stand out a bit, I might take just some of the buttermilk with a little bit of that color. Just a few lights. It's like almost a sagey green there. I don't want to do it everywhere, but in some spots, just put a little there. And down here, I really am taking just a little bit of a wet brush, take most of that off. And down here, it's almost to give texture. There's hardly any on this. Let me get a little more. I want to be able to see it, but see, I was worried so much about the background. We pretty much are covering it, so it's really nothing you have to really, I think I fussed about it a little bit too much. So anyway, you want to break up some of this, you can just dab that wherever you might need it. I kind of like the way a few of the strokes on the top are in that sage green are lighter than what I did on my original, but I like the way those are popping out. So I'm going to just leave them. I'm still going to come back up here and add some pinks and purples and blues. When we do the flowers down here, I'll just do a few strokes up here as if it's a little bit of that in the background too. So I think I would work on the deer now, and then we'll finish up with the stuff on the bottom. And I did a pretty good tracing. So what I'm going to start with first is a dark brown. I have a burnt umber here. You know how sometimes they're a little different and not dark enough, but I've got it's funny, I got the deco art and the burnt umber's never real dark enough for me. But I went and got traditional burnt umber. Didn't realize it was so much darker. Like this is burnt umber and this is traditional. I didn't know I thought they were all burnt umber, but the traditional is a little darker. So I'm going to start with a dark brown, and it's going to help me, first of all, to separate the deer, and so I'll know what's where. And then we'll work lighter, but at first I'm going to just kind of outline. Let's try that brush. So I've got that dark burnt umber. And this is probably going to dry and we're going to have to re-wet it, but it's going to at least, it's going to be a shadow around the baby deer here. So I think a good way to start is just to kind of outline it. I don't want it to be a harsh outline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go as far as I can. I'm going to even do this again because I wanted a little bit more coverage, but I don't want to have a harsh line. So before it dries, I'm just going to kind of smush it out. And so it'll be easier to blend afterwards. So I wouldn't go and outline everything because it's going to dry. Try to kind of get a little bit done and see how far you can go, and then just sort of soften it so it's not just a harsh line. This is going to be behind, so we'll just do that. Maybe make this a little darker on that back side of that leg. Now this little bit of the mother's leg is here, and that's pretty behind, so we're going to just leave that on the darker side to begin with. We're going to go right around this baby. I'm adding water as I need to. My paint has been sitting out. And get the shape of that face a little better. But again, now I'll come and really just soften that out a bit so it'll be easier. And then under her chin, of course, we need to set her a little bit of her face apart. So do that. I'm really just going to look for any dark areas. There's a little shadow under her chest here and down onto the leg, so I'll put that in. I don't mind it being a solid line there because that's what we want, but down here we want to soften that. And I'm going to keep the right side of their legs on the dark side. So we'll just go right ahead with that shadow. And a little darker there. Right down with this side of that leg. And before I move on, I want to soften that. Shadow underneath there. And let's see. I had this leg a little lighter because it was more towards us, the backside of the baby though. So we'll do, and I'm going to thin it a little more still because it really is dragging. So we'll just, there. And then I can dry my brush off even and just kind of soften that. And you can see how that's going to help us just tell what is what here under maybe a little shadow under her tail. She's going to be a little darker around the tips of the ears. So I'm going to just look at the sample now and just, if I see dark, I'm going to get that in there. And again, I need a second coat, but it's a start. She's dark on this ear, on that side. And we'll just go right in and outline that a little bit. She's got a little dark over her eye and down the middle of her nose. So we'll get a little dark in there. I can soften that just a bit. Got that, that. So that's where all the dark is. But I want to go ahead now, just whatever I did, and just go one more coat because it needs to be a little darker, especially when it's right on her body, right behind the baby. So I can get that a little darker now in that second coat. You can see now it'll be a nice shadow back there. But again, I don't want to be going too far with that without just softening it. Sometimes I even just keep a dry brush in my other hand and soften as I go, but this will work. We'll just get it a little softer. And I'm just going to do that same thing where we, wherever we went already. It doesn't have to go all the way out even. It's kind of nice to go from when to my dark here, and then you can see it shades out a little bit. So I really am just kind of following what I've already done. It transitions, that's the word I was looking for. Transitions into a little bit lighter. Yeah, I know it looks like black there on the camera, but it really is just dark brown. I'm pretty happy with not having to add black or Payne's gray to this burnt umber. Now I can go in with a couple different shades. I have a burnt sienna here. What color is this brown I have out here? Raw sienna, I think. And honey brown. I just took out a few shades of brown. The raw sienna looks like the darker, and it's next to my burnt sienna. So I might just use those two colors with like a medium shade of brown now. Ideally, if I could mix it as I go, some of this is a little wet, that's great, but it's going to take a few coats again. So I'm going into these middle shades of brown here. I might go a little shy of the edges because I'm going to get that just with the honey brown maybe. So I'm just going to, again, I'm just trying to cover the whites of the canvas and sort of get a little blend if I can into the shadow areas that I have. And I'm not going to worry about the ears right now because they're going to be mostly pinkish on the inside. And I'm not going to, again, go right up to the edges too much because I want to put a little bit lighter there, especially the light baby in front of the mother. They have white chests, but I will do a little bit of that go right over with this because we're going to lighten that up afterwards. So let's just try to get the middle of the bodies kind of done. And if you can, when you're meeting up against this dark, sort of just blend that a little bit if it moves at all for you. This one's going to be more of a lighter shade, so we'll just fill the middle of that leg in. Belly is going to be a little white there, so we'll put a little bit of the brown there. Just keep reloading as you need to. I said to leave the outside edge for the light, but I mean, this is good enough. You don't have to be super careful. I'm just kind of leaving a little space there. And I'll just go in over to the mom here. So far it's really just putting in the dark, a little of the mid-tone. Pam, do you ever use like an extender or some medium that helps it not dry?
I do.
'Cause
My husband has it right now. He's trying to finish his paint by number that he bought last year,
Oh, cool.
and
Yeah,
he's just having fits with it. But I keep
Oh.
telling him, "You're doing great."
Yeah, just take your time. And so what I was going to say is if this was like an oil paint or you could just blend to your heart's content, it's a little easier. So we're just forcing the acrylics to sort of work a little like oils, and we paint wet and wet sometimes, but an extender really is handy on some cases of something like this that you're really trying to blend as much as you can without having to go too fast. I think I'm going to go ahead now and take a little of the buttermilk because I want to get it a little lighter. For instance, under the chest is going to be a little bit of white. So if I can get in there and just get it slightly lighter, so it's just the buttermilk, you could use white too. I'm just kind of keeping with that tone. And I'm just going to go, you can see it's not a lot lighter, it's just slightly lighter. Just get the areas where it's going to be the almost the white. And I will use white after on it on these little areas, but for now I just want to build it up slowly. Under this little belly of this one, we've got a little, I could go to a smaller brush, but it's just a little belly right there. Kind of comes down a little bit there. Their tails have a little white on them. Oh, I didn't do the brown on the tail, but I got the little white there, so I'll just get a little tail color there, maybe. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing a little bit with the edges now. I'm running out of room to blend on here. I'm going to just grab this other little palette. I'm going to go into my honey brown now. That's a really nice shade, I think, for the light too. And I like the big brush because I'm thinking it's going to help me blend a little more, but a smaller brush might be easier to get into places. So I'm going to start with it, but if I need to on the small areas, I will stop. So that doesn't look much lighter to me. So I'm going to mix it. I'm going to actually get white out and mix a little bit with that and see. White or the buttermilk. I want it to be able to see now the a little lighter areas. I think I like the buttermilk with that better. So I'm still not being able to blend it as well as I'd like, but I'm getting the colors where I want them, and then I'll come back in with a smaller brush and just blend little areas as I go. So now I'm just going out a little further on the places I kind of kept away from. I can get even a little lighter in the chest area there. So I'll put it in, I'll get the light in there. It's kind of wet into the dry now, but still can soften it in with a dry brush a little bit. This little one back here, I give it a little, it's very dark on that leg, but I just give it a little dry brush of a little light there. So this is kind of dry in here, but dry brushing that over does soften it a bit. That is so dark there, I don't have to worry about lightening it too much, so it's kind of nice. I can really go in there with my color. Let's get a little lighter on her back here. It's not too light. Yeah, let's go a little brighter. I'm kind of dry brushing it in. Again, we'll come back and blend. And I'm going to do the features and the eyes and the ears separate. So just kind of go right down this side. She's going to have a little on her muzzle there, a little white too. And I can see how streaky it is now on the body there. So I'm going to go back up here to my medium browns. I'm going to bring it to my other palette. And you can get a little dab of the dark brown down there. I'm kind of going in where I can see I need a second coat a bit. And now I hate to slow down sometimes, 'cause I like to go around and don't do all the blending, but at some point you have to kind of do little pieces at a time so that it's wet and you can blend. So maybe I'll just go to the smaller brushes now. So for instance, on the legs, you can really see the dark here and the light, but we've kind of lost the mid-tone. So we'll just work on, maybe a couple of legs at a time, even one if it's drying like this. I've got that little leg done and it's wet now. So now I can take that light and I have time to blend. So it's going to be a nicer, smoother blend now because it's wet and wet. But it's nice to get those base colors down, a little choppy as they are. And now you can go back and even if we need a little of a little more of the dark burnt down because I'm going to re-wet little areas section at a time. So we know this leg is pretty dark here. I'm going to just go in with a little tiny bit of that dark just so I have something to blend the middle tone into. And I know I've used various browns, but basically you can see what I end up with is the darkest, a little mid-tone, which was the raw umber and the burnt sienna and the honey brown, and then like honey brown and buttermilk or white. So it's really just light tannish almost to a dark brown. It doesn't have to all be those exact colors as long as you've got the different values there. So now it's wet and wet there. We've blended the middle tone into that shadow. But even though it's underneath and it is kind of in shadow, we want a little bit of a highlight on this left side. It sets it apart from that little bit of the mom's leg that's back there. But before it dries, I'm just using paper towel, dry off the brush, and that gives me a dry brush to sort of blend. I keep wiping off if I need to. But look at those, both legs look pretty blended now. They might look a little dark to me, but that's when I can kind of take a look and then say, oh, it is a little dark for a leg. Maybe I'll just lighten it up. I can still do that because it's a bit wet. I just want to lighten them up a little bit. Okay, why don't we just concentrate on this little baby one first? And I'm going to get a little more red brown because again, I'm just looking at the sample and it looks like this leg is more of a red brown. And that is one because it's in front, I did it lighter all around. I'm going to get a little bit lighter on the front. Same over here. Let me get some of that mid-tone again in between. I might not have to re-wet that dark brown. I think I can just dry brush over it. It's funny on the camera, this here looks like such bright white on the camera. You guys can see that, but to me it's just kind of a beige. So I'm going to soften that. And I think I want to get a little more of a shadow here. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the bigger brush for the body. And sometimes you can even, if it's dry, you can lightly dry brush on top and get, it's almost like a blend too, which kind of works there. And I notice on their backs, I just get a little darker sometimes, like underneath those little spots, it kind of helps those little spots show up. So I get a little bit more of the dark brown there. I don't know what that little spot is. I can see it on the camera. I don't see it much here, but let's just cover that up. Okay, and I have the highlight on her on the little one's back, so I need to re-wet that a little bit to just be able to blend it and soften it because it looked like a line before. So that's all pretty blended. And the back of the neck I kind of neglected, I guess. So that's a little bit lighter. Like I said, we'll worry about the ears and everything after. The little face, she's looking up, this one. A little lighter around the muzzle. And front of the chest, and then we're going to get into some of the real light down here. I've lost the little eye here. Actually, you know what? I lied. I'm going to just take a little brown and get, I didn't do the edge of her ear, so I'm going to get a little light brown just to get the edge of that ear. And I can just soften that. The eye is here. Let me put the I have a pencil where I can just, I want to just place my eye a little bit. Well, I'll do it with just the paint, but I just want to place where it's going to go. Just so I can go around it and it's a little lighter around it. I'm just guessing, but this looks good. What's that?
One me.
Okay, but I think sometimes as I'm talking, it's reverberating back to me. It was probably that. Probably that. Okay, so down here I'm going to put some brown just because I know I want to go over it with a little white. Reshape that little head. Okay, so the chest is going to get lighter. So I'm just going to take the dirty brush I had into the white. It's going to just get a little lighter. I'm using the chisel edge to kind of make it look a little like fur, starting down at the bottom. You know how fur lays and we work on our way up. Face is the same. She's going to get a little bit of light right above her nose here. Brush is a little big. I probably should go to a smaller brush, but it's going to go a little light right around her eyes too. And I'm going to play around with the little features like that, but I'm going to get lighter now. So I want to get a little lighter here. And I can even use the little texture of fur like on, they're not too fuzzy, but I'm just using, I don't want it to be too smooth. I'm really using a little bit of texture there. And this little belly area we have, that's going to be a little lighter. And around the tails a little bit. And I'm going to get even a little lighter. I could wait till this dries a little more too, but let me just see if I can get a little lighter. And then I'm going to let it dry and do a few strokes of just white later. I want it to kind of soften in, so I'm just going to do that. Little dots on their backs we'll do afterwards. And I want to just find, well, I was going to do a pencil, but I just want to reshape this little face of this one. Kind of lost the nose here on my tracing. I just kind of want to have an idea where that's going to all go. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, and the eye. Can just do that with black. I've really thinned it down a bit. Okay, now let's get mom's. Might as well do mom's nose too and eye. So she's got. I've got to do a little closer to her eye, but I kind of want to place these things just because I've lost my tracing. And she's got a little bit of an eye over here. Just kind of something like that. I have to fill in, my background should have gone in a little closer there. And her nose comes down this way, and so she's good. I'm just getting some ideas now where these things are going to go, just to sort of help me place them. This eye shouldn't be so bugged out, but I'm going to just take a clean brush and just cut that down a little bit. Make it not such like a little bubble. And I do want to get in there with the, I'm just gonna grab some of my background color that we had earlier. Because I need to come in here a little bit. Of course, my background color is kind of dried now. I do need a little tiny bit of paint gray. Just a touch. I just needed to do that. I think I needed to do that. Her ears look incredibly big, but that's how they were on the original, so. Okay. Now we're just gonna do the same thing on here. We're gonna kind of, if we need to re-wet the dark a little bit, get into our mid-tones before that dries and sort of blend. And just try to get a little lighter in some places. I can reshape here if I see that, oh, that leg needs a little reshaping, just with the little chisel edge of the brush, that works. But I'm getting a much nicer blend now. I'm going to just get this little dark. I'm just going to bring it up a little more. There. And I'm going to try to just go in with my mid-tone up here. It's very dark. I can maybe almost dry brush over it without having to put more dark on. I might need to blend it, but let's just see. I got a little dark actually on her back as well. Just where I'm going to put those little speckles. And as you can see, the most time we're taking on this painting is with the animals here. I'm grabbing just more of the medium middle tones of the burnt sienna and the raw umber here, just dragging it down to the other palette, that's all. And
Yes, we've lost TV.
oh, I'll get a little closer to my eyes too now.
Thanks.
Maybe a little closer to there. The light areas, I think I'll pop into some of that buttermilk just to get it started. She's going to have that white chest start under her mouth there. This little front is going to be a little bit lighter, but that's just going to place it for us. So I'll drag a little white because actually her tail kind of grew. I could take the background color and fix that if I need to. It kind of grew a little bit. A little mid-tone here. I'm going to just wash a little of the dark, the little baby's back. There's like a little separation. I can kind of see from it, you might not even notice it, but I'm going to just take a little wash of the shadow just to bring it down a little closer to the baby there. Anywhere I want to give it a better line. I'm gonna, since I have kind of a wash now of that dark on my brush, she has a little bit of dark over her eyebrow, over her eye, not eyebrow. Again, into where these ears are. Just put that dark there. And a little bit down the front, the middle of her face. It's just a wash of the dark here. Okay. Mid-tone again of the brown. A little of that in here. And now I want to get those little, the white chest area a little bit, start at the bottom again. Using a little bit of a textured stroke. Sometimes less is more. I don't want to do every little hair, but I just want to get that a little lighter and just build up to have where it's mostly the lighter brown, but then a little bit of white, just like the baby's dry now. So we could just get a little bit, a few strokes. Actually, let me wash my brush because I still had a lot of that brown on there. So either a new brush or clean up the brush and just some strokes of white on that little chest. and on the mom. You can get as detailed with the little brush strokes as you like. I'm kind of smushing them a little bit because I want not to look like we wouldn't see every little hair, but it just has some texture. Sometimes I go ahead and I get all that detail and I go, wait a minute, that's too much now. So, a little wider on the tips of the tail. I can see that shadow looking super dark to me, so I'll take a little bit of maybe burnt sienna or something just to go dry brush over it. Just to lighten that up a little bit. And this is where coming in handy is looking at the video and for you guys for stepping back because the whole front of her face looks a little bit too dark, but I don't want to take, I want that shadow there, but I'll just go and add a little bit of the mid-tone brown in as well, just to soften it a little bit here and there. And with that dark, you can go right over without having it wet and wet with the mid-tone in it, and it works nice, like I say, because you get the texture of that, of the canvas, and it just has a nice texture to it. So I'm just kind of softening some of the real darks that I see. But they really did help us when we needed them to separate the two deers and give us an idea where their bodies are. Okay. I'm going to wash in the pink in their ears now just to let that dry, and then I'm going to put the little speckles on them. And I just use a little quinacridone, but also some red to make it a little more salmon-y colored than just hot pink. Actually, you could probably just do red and white. That would probably give you a decent inner ear color. So we're just going with that little pink on the inside. And I'm going to shade around the edge of the inside of the ear with more of a maroon. So we could just take some of that red with a little black and get a nice maroon just for a little shadow. So I will take the red, a little bit of black, and I don't want it too dark, so I want it more maroon than black. So let me just get a little bit. And the baby, I think I just did the top part, just a little shadow here. And I'm gonna go and run the edges of this one. And I don't want, again, it to look just like we outlined it, but if I get in there while it's wet, I can probably do both while I'm in here, and then just dry that off and blend it a little bit. Oops, I had too much dark on there, so skip that. We'll just wash the brush. I can put a little of the pink on there to get that back. I want it to be a little lighter back in the middle. And I think I can use the corner of my brush. It might be best to do a liner brush, but I'm going to take just a little white. It's kind of a little thin on my brush. And I just, with the chisel edge or just a liner brush, just along the ear, I'm bringing up some white fur here. And I'm going to do another coat of that. It looks, it kind of fades out. Just at the very bottom of the ear, some little strokes coming up and then kind of curving. If you need to, her tail's not, I like it a little whiter on the edge. And to make that even look a little whiter, why don't I just make the brown part a little darker? That's a little light. If something's too dark, you can scooch over it with just a dry brush. It looks like it's a little dark on the camera in some of these little shadow areas. So funny the difference the camera makes. It's interesting. Okay, so the little spots on their backside are not, you don't want it to be super bright white and jumping out at you. So I think I might start with just some of the buttermilk down here, kind of mixed with maybe whatever's here. Maybe a little white. And they're really just irregular shapes, so you can just almost like push the brush down, and you don't want to make perfect little circles. I'm just kind of dabbing. It's kind of just the buttermilk. I'm going to come back maybe with some little dabs of a washy white on top. So it'll be a two-step process here. Kind of want to be a little random. And then, like I said, we'll come back actually, maybe just grab some white and see just a little few on top. I'm not doing the whole shape again. I'm just giving it a little dab on top of a little bit of heavier white. And if you need to, I just really want a little bit of a brighter white on the tips of the tails. And maybe in some little strokes here and there, can lighten this up a little bit. Just getting it a little lighter, kind of more in the center of that area. I've already filled in the eyes with black. The little one has a little bit of white. They each have a little bit more white on their face. So I've done a little bit of a lighter brown here, but right on top of the nose, on her little nose, it just gets a little some white strokes. Kind of comes down around her eye. Just a little bit there. And I didn't do the white around her little ear, so we'll do some little strokes of white here. I'll outline this a little bit. Kind of lost the brown on this ear, so I'm just going to put a little more brown on there. So that's about all you need for the ears. And you can see I put white on the nose again, and it kind of fades to be more beige, so I'll put another highlight, but she's got some white around her nose. So again, I'll start it with the buttermilk, so it's not stark white to begin with. And right around her nose, it's a little bit of a light area too. And I'm going to kind of bring it up a little bit just with the lighter shade of brown from, on top of her little mouth here. Under her mouth is like a little strip here, and that is lighter too. So let me make that a little lighter area. Here is lighter, and it kind of does go up and goes around her eye a little bit. Over this eye here. And I'm just going to get some of my middle, the dark shadow there is good still. I'm just going to get a little of my mid-tone brown. I think it's looking pretty good though. Just wash that in. And so now I do need a little spot here and there, like right above this one, a little bit more white. A little white just on the side of the nose there is going to be a little brighter white. And I'll just kind of bring that back, little strokes. And I'm going to go to my tiny brush now for the eye. And I'm just reshaping that because I lost it when I did my highlights. The nose is kind of rectangular, and I got this little mouth coming in here. I'm going to highlight with some blue and some white in a minute. I've got this little mouth on the baby there, and the nose is kind of a little bit triangle shaped on this side. This eye is pretty good. So I do a little bit of we'll take that blue if you have a blue out, or just some of your phthalo with some white. It's just a little half circle of white, excuse me, the blue on the bottom of the eye. So just a little half circle. I know it's kind of hard to see that. You hardly have an eye here, so I just put a little dab of blue, a little bit of a half circle on the baby there. I just do a little smudge of that blue since it's on my brush on the nose. That's a little bit bright. There, it's a little bit more subdued. Same on the baby's nose, just on the tip where it separates it from the body of the mother, just a little tiny stroke. And then some highlights, and that sort of makes it. So a little highlight of white in her eye there, even on the little half of eye, a little highlight on the nose, A little highlight on the nose and just a little dot in the baby there. And I think it's, let's see. I just want to pull a little point out here on the eye there. Okay. I think I looked at it and just did a few little, a little touch-ups if you think is any place you need to. For instance, where is the red? Sienna. Burnt orange. Isn't it funny when you're painting and you've got your colors right in front of you and they still disappear? So I might have just roughed up some areas, like because her little head is in front of the mom's, I could kind of go and just give it, I'm not making her fuzzy, but I'm just giving it a little texture. Just bringing out just a little texture here and there if I thought I needed it. I did do a little bit of a lighter brown, thin it down. This looked just too smooth to me, so I sort of just came and just did some little texture of hair. If you need to, I don't think I was gonna say I could wash in a darker bit on her face, but in the camera it looks pretty dark. And so that's basically the deer. This is looking like I need a little bit of a shadow. Hang on. So you can tell the head is here. It would need just a little bit of dark, maybe on the neck there. Maybe a little lighter here. Just to give that a little form. But any questions on the deer there now? At all? I probably would come in and with my background color and shape that a little better. It's got a little big for my liking, but I can do that later on. It's just it's okay for now. So we'll just hop on now into the foreground. And that is again starting with the darker, working to the lighter. So what I really want there is a really dark green. And let me just make up. I'll just take my phthalo green, a little blue, Payne's gray. Just get a dark green. Remember, adding a little red to it will deepen it for us. I'll grab a little fresh red. So let's get a darker green. I'm going to get out some fresh yellow I'll need, and a little more of the deep ochre. That deep ochre does dull down the color a little bit too when we want to do that or darken. Okay, so I'm going to that's pretty dark. That's dark, but I needed more blue. Okay. So I'm just going to make it kind of rough all around here. This is all in the foreground now. And I could just make a few areas a little darker. Almost like this is even closer than this, and this is a little further back. A little bit of that yellow ochre dulls that down nicely too. So I'm still having some dark, some light. I don't want it to be all exactly the same, but we just need to cover the canvas there. So let's pull this over so you can see. And where it meets up here, I just make it kind of rough so it's not a perfect line all around. And I could just go into my deep ochre sometimes, even any of these browns. A little bit of the red sometime will give me a nice deep earthy green. And there, we're just getting the white of the canvas covered. I'm going right into the deep ochre, right in there some places. Just make it a little bit to break up the solid of the same color of the brighter green in the front could go. I just want to cover all of the foreground. And now I can just wipe off that. Let's see, I'm gonna get another paper towel here. And I want it to be lighter in some places, so now I can go ahead and just I'm using that same dirty brush, but I can get a little of that yellow on top. I'm gonna add a little white to it even. So some areas are gonna be a little lighter, mostly towards the top, almost like it's going to blend a little in the background. Maybe if I just even add a little water, kind of soften it like we did with those little bits of branches, just kind of hazy in the background. I'm going to take just some deep ochre and just up, not even going into the green here, and I'm going up into the dry area of the sky. That sort of brings up this like a little background, only a little hazier. So it's really just very light color on the brush and we can do that later too, but I just want to get it in there a little bit. Let me dry this brush off good here now. So if we have this dark in the back, we can start adding a few lights, but then we can add in some of the flowers. Now, the yellow ones that you see, I have base coated in white first, once this is dry, and then did yellow, because otherwise you could dab yellow on there forever and it's never going to be as brilliant. The white took a couple coats. Then I just did some quinacridone and some blues, started dark, and then just did dabs. So they're almost like lupiny flowers or just a little different shape to kind of play off the round daisies. Having this triangle shape for those other colored flowers is just something I put in there. Okay, so I want to get some other colors in here now. I could just go in with some of the blue here and there. I'm probably going to do a little dry with this with the heat gun just to get that a little drier so we can paint the flowers. This background part you're going to hardly see, but the little bits that are peeking out, I don't want to just be plain old green. So we'll just stroke some colors in, then we'll do the flowers, then we'll actually place some leaves and things in there. Just to make it a little more interesting. But let's dry that up now. And then I could get those little detail flowers in. I do want some areas dark like that. So let me grab that heat gun here. Come on. You know, since I organize and everything has a place, it's in its place, but hard to get at. All right, let me just dry this up. Amazing how fast that dries, and it's a little quieter than the hair dryer too. All right, so I want to put the white daisies in and the white that we're going to dab over with yellow. For the little daisy flowers, I did use a little flat brush. Again, you can use a little round brush. It's whatever. I'm going to try this one. It feels like something's on there, but let's see. So I need a little fresh white, if I can find a little place. And I'm just doing like a little bunch of the yellow flowers here. So I'm just taking and dabbing the white. And you can go fairly heavy with that. If it's very see-through when it dries, you can just do a second coat. But I'm going to dab in where I want some of these to go. It doesn't have to, you don't have to follow the painting exact. It's just nice to kind of spread them around a little bit. My background here went way up higher than this one. Again, I try to stick to the original, but it's not always easy enough to do. That's all right. And I think sometimes I just dab them around and if we take the yellow after with a little white mixed with it, we can get some coverage with that too. So let's just see our flowers. I think I'm going to go to, no, this might work. They're going to be a little bigger. Again, I was going to maybe go to the smaller brush. Now, many times when I make my daisy flowers, my little ones, I start the outside and pull in and make that nice little flower shape, which you could use here. I wanted to do something different than we always did, so I kind of did it that they're little spiky little flower daisies. So, however is easiest for you. Sometimes they're not even a whole flower. Sometimes they're just like this little bit sticking up. I'm making them a little bigger, at least so you can see them too. But sometimes it's just like a half of a flower, and we'll just put a little bit of a center in the top there. So just kind of randomly fill up this front. We're going to do one coat on top here so that that white really shows up. And then I did a little wash, actually of Payne's Gray around the centers. But actually, I forgot to say, put a little extra white where the center is going to go to, because those are going to be yellow. So we're just going to go and fill in wherever we want. Now here's a place where you could have give it your own spin by doing other color flowers or other whatever you want around the base here. Again, this could be a snow scene, and you could just have some little bushes with some red berries on them. If you want to place them with chalk or something first, you could, but these can really certainly be free-handed. I'm gonna put some right at their legs where the grass starts. Sometimes they're nice in little groupings. Okay, it's a nice little grouping of them there. Sometimes you could just get little petals coming out from off the canvas. That is good for those guys. Okay, so why don't we do some, while this dries, and we can do the yellow after. I go in with some of the deep ochre and then the bright yellow. But for the ones that are the dark purpley ones, it's the quinacridone. A little blue gives you a really dark kind of a violet. That. And they're really just kind of a triangular shape. I'll just kind of start, say, with the top, and I'm just kind of dab, 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 and it kind of gives you that dark shape. You can get away with doing a few of these at a time because I want to dab some white on top while it's a little wet, but those got real purple, so now I can even go just right in the quinacridone and get some that are more pink, using it with a dirty brush, so still has a little bit of the blue in it. It could be a combination of the blue and the purple, the quinacridone and the purple. Get a little less purple, a little more pink. And I have these, like I said, they're like lupin like maybe flowers, but you could just put little bits of it showing through wherever you want in the grass. And because this is, I'm laying it on rather thick, I can go ahead now right into my white, and I am just going to dab on top now, here and there. So leaving some of the background color showing up. You can see we're going from purpley to pink just because of that base being a little bit slightly different with more pink or more blue. This one is pretty blue. This little technique works any color. We'll do some more just blue ones too afterwards. And it's still wet enough for me to get a little mix of the colors. I just add more white when I find it's just not getting as light as I'd like. I want to get a little more pink and some. And I did some that were just the phthalo blue with some white on top. No rhyme or reason. I just sort of space them out a little bit, but it's not like I'm thinking about it too much. Sometimes it could just be little dabs of the colors. It could be like part of the flowers just kind of blended in with the background. Same way with the white, just dab that on again. I think we've done flowers similar to this before. And like I said, with the yellow ones, I want to have a little dimension, so I will take my deep ochre or yellow ochre, whatever you have, and dab in some of that just as the little shadowy areas. Then I'll go with just the primary yellow straight. I didn't go with a second coat. I don't think it needs it of white. Because you want it to blend a little. You don't want it to be jumping out of off the page too much. But this just gives it a little bit of a shadow, which we don't really get like the darker ones did, with a real dark, and then we add the white on top. Okay, is that all we kind of did with those? Okay, I'm just going to dry the brush off and go with my primary yellow. And now you don't have to work too hard to try to cover exactly where your little white dots are, because yellow is so transparent. If it overshoots it, it's okay. So don't, kill yourself trying to go, okay, right over each little thing. Just kind of dab it on top. That's all it needs. Because it even just gives a lighter greener tone to the daubs you put on that are on the background, and it just gives it like almost self-shadow shading. And I did just dab some here and there afterwards with a little yellow with white mixed, so we'll try that next. Whenever we're doing something like this, I want to put it like I did the blue in between, kind of dab the colors here and there. Could almost add just a few little of that bright on top here. It's not going to be too bright, but it does so transparent. It's like a little glaze on just a few areas up there. It's like spreading the color around the whole painting is kind of a way I like to get it a little more cohesive. I'm doing this a little quick. You don't have to spend too much time on it, but I'm just going a little quick too, because I hate to make you be here all night. Pam, how are you coming along?
I'll have to do the flowers tomorrow. My mother dear looked like a fox, so I had to fix her face.
They're hard. Like this one is looking a little odd to me too, but I think it's because I'm staring at it too hard. If I step away, maybe it come back to it and can even fix it a little better. I want to do one more quick here and there petals of the white to make it just a little brighter. Then I'll do a little wash. It seems like a insignificant little thing, but the little wash around the center really kind of gives the little flower dimension. It makes them sink in towards the center. So I just need a few highlights. I'm not tracing over every little stroke I did. I'm just giving some a little brighter, which is nice if you have some that are behind that aren't as bright. So I'm not trying to go right over what I had. I'm just doing some extra around. Again, I like the grayish ones that are still a few left behind there. I don't know, I just kind of like these more star-like shaped flowers. They're not really daisy shaped, but they're kind of a fun little shape there. All right, so when it dries, I'm going to do a little wash and then the yellow centers. But I did do some, I take some yellow, almost mixed with some of the white. Actually, it's got quite a bit of green in it. I just want to do some, before we go and do like more just leaf shapes, I like to just dab, spread some of that yellow around. It'll go nice when we put the little yellow centers. And then with that brush, we can just take a lighter green. You can just mix like an apple green. I know I have some mixed sometimes, but if you just have your primary yellow and some of these greens we had and a touch of white, and you can just go ahead in and make some leaf shapes, just random here and there. You can do that with some dark green as well. It's just filling in it some of the spaces here. Actually, I like to do them sometimes in like that blue shade as well. I've been doing with my End of the Sea paintings even, I've been putting in some of this blue shaped foliage and leaves. Ooh, that's turned too green because I really should have washed my brush off. So get a little blue again. It's just little dabbing, like little leafy sort of shapes. It could be just little bits of color. Any other shades of green that you might have? I'm going to get a little bit more of an emeraldy green, which I don't often use, but let's just see. In a few spots, it just almost gives texture. It's so close to the value there, but it's just nice. And maybe some dark. Because we did start very dark. We've lost some of that very dark, but we could get some contrast in there again. And I did a lot of little dabbing of color, like the yellow and whatnot. I did a few little leaves. I didn't do a lot of this, but coming up out of the back, I did a few little around their legs. I think just to take away, I think that some of the legs were looking wonky, so I just sort of did some little grasses coming up here and there. Not a ton, only to the back here is really where I had them. Some little leaves sometimes. Just anything for sort of texture back there. Sometimes it's just little dabs. Get kind of a more of an earthy green, and sometimes I just dab it in. This grew very large compared to the other, so it kind of needed a little more texture in there. Just add some little bits. Now, my little white flowers are dry, so I'm just going to use a little flat brush or even a little round. I just want to take a clean brush, take a tiny bit of Payne's Gray, and really just kind of wash it out a little bit. Is that Payne's Gray or is that black? No, Payne's Gray, good. And all I'm doing is just going to go around where the center is. And I want it light. I don't want it to be that dark. It's just a little wash around the centers where they would be. I'm just kind of imagining where they would be. Just a little bit of a shadow. I think some of my white is still a little wet, but and then I put my center in, and it's just a little bit of, I'll start with just a little yellow. Then along the bottom, when it's dry, I'm just going to do one little line of the deep ochre, just X as a little shadow. So just primary yellow, just your little centers. And then it's just to give it a little stroke under here. It's easier if I show you this one, I think. You can kind of see just a little Payne's Gray wash, centers primary yellow, and then just a little C stroke, half a little the bottom there, just a little bit of the yellow ochre, deep ochre, whichever shade you've got. I think I dabbed some of that in the background too, which let's do that in a second. Oops, I kind of went off center. That one didn't have a yellow, but we just put that in anyway. And I see that I did even take some little here and there. Deep ochre. Just dab that in. Could be like a little more color. I think I had a few more brighter yellows in between here in places. If you want, you can do little bits. I did take some of the purples and the blues. Oh, that's a muddy color. That's what I get for mixing, not washing my brush off. It comes up as gray sometimes. So you can take, even like the little pinks and just little dots and dabs here and there. And it just gives you a fun little foreground. You could spend a little more time. I was a little fast with that, but anyways, you get the idea. So you can see, I like the foreground here and here's where I did take some of these colors, like I say, up into the background. And it's just that you could do them as you were dabbing. If you have a little bit of the blue, for instance, I just went up and got it kind of that one's a little bit, I'm just gonna soften it. Not quite so bright, but you can kind of see here, I just went in and I dabbed little bits of purple, little bits of pink and blue. It just helped me bring a lot of this busyness up here. So it's almost like some foliage that's further back, but not as detailed. And I just dabbed it. I did the same with some of the purple. So if I just go into some pink with a little blue. I don't want it to be super dark, so I can just actually do it as a wash or add a little white. That's got a little bit of water in it just to kind of make it nice. So it kind of almost has all this busyness going on here. And it had kind of stopped. This sort of gradually brings that kind of look back there. And I know I just took little washes of some of the purples and the pinks. So anyways, what do you think there? That it was a long, lengthy one, but you can do it in bits. So Pam, did you?
I'm getting there. You
Good.
want to see?
Yeah, I would love to see. Oh gosh, that's great. You got your deer in there. See, I like your little baby's face way better than mine. And you know what? I think it's my shape is off a little. You've got the
Well, like I
nose
said,
and
my
then
mom
up on the head.
looked like a fox for a long time, but I think
Yeah.
I got it
It's
fixed. So
perfect there now. And the mom too. Very nice. Yeah.
I'm
Looks good.
starting on the flowers.
Yeah, those are fun to do, but after we've done all this, it's been a long, kind of a long class. Sometimes it's nice to have come back and just do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Okay, ladies, I want to see yours.